Hello, I'm Jacob Roth, and welcome to our TED Talk. Today, we're talking about Chiapas, the southernmost state in Mexico, which borders Guatemala. Chiapas is known for its mountains, rainforests, Mayan archaeological sites, and most infamously, its poverty. Of all the 32 states in Mexico, Chiapas is by far the poorest. A study by Harvard found that Chiapas is, quote, the most backward state in Mexico. Before we explain the different and complex reasons for such a devastating state of poverty, I'd like to make a very simple analogy. Pretend that this cup is the state of Chiapas, and that the water inside of this cup is money from the Mexican government. The Mexican government invests money in the state of Chiapas, but what you can't see is that there are holes in the bottom of the cup. This is the perfect analogy for describing Chiapas. As the government pours more and more money in, the money disappears.
Right now in Chiapas, the situation is dire. The southern state, which is nearly 1/4 indigenous, is the poorest in Mexico with a 75% poverty rate. Its GDP per capita is just above $7,000, the lowest of any Mexican state. Compare that to Ciudad de Mexico, which has nearly $50,000 in GDP per capita. Chiapas suffers from high infant mortality, and nearly half of Chiapas children suffer from malnourishment. Its illiteracy rate is over double the rest of Mexico, and 16% of people over 15 have no further formal education. Yet, over the past 25 years, the government has poured over $60 billion into the state's social programs. It hasn't worked. Chiapas has been the slowest growing state in all of Mexico for the entire time. The government has actually ignored the reality of Chiapas' economy. If we look at the Harvard study that Jacob was mentioning earlier, the economy of Chiapas is the third least complex in all of Mexico. It has a low amount of exports per capita, but also very simple exports. So that's mostly primary products like coffee, tobacco, things that a lot of states can make and that a lot of states don't really need. The economy of Chiapas is too simple to reward further education. So that isn't encouraged, because if you don't have a higher level job to go to, why are you going to get educated to farm beans? It's too simple to be able to take the money that the government throws at it and use it to do more than just allow citizens to subsist. We'd say that the roots of the problem in Chiapas have a lot of elements. Not only things like infant mortality, lack of education, lack of food, all that stuff, all the normal factors that cause problems in a developing society. But most importantly, a very simple economy. In fact, we'd say the simple economy accounts for more than half of the problems in Chiapas. And that if we can fix that, everything else will take care of itself. We look at it as the disease being a simple economy and the symptoms being malnourishment, lack of education, all those standard symptoms. If we can get Chiapas to shift to producing goods that other states in Mexico cannot, as well as those with which other countries clamor for, the money that the Mexican government throws at it will no longer be wasted. And that will lead up to a buildup of public services in the region.
While the direct government investment in the region would likely follow the same trend as previous efforts on its own, we plan to combine it with a concentrated effort to develop Chiapas into an industrial center. This would follow a similar model to the maquiladora system in the north, but would have some distinct advantages. Currently, the two largest industries in terms of exports from Mexico are vehicles, which constitute 25%, electrical machinery, which makes up 18.2%, and computerized machinery, which is 16.7%. Since these industries are such a prosperous source of income for the country, and they are all privately owned and operated, adding industrial centers of this nature in the Chiapas region would constitute a massive diversification of the economy. Initially, direct taxes on these companies would be next to nothing, instead mandating them to fund, at least in part, the development of the infrastructure that they need to operate. This will couple with the government program to accelerate progress in the area while also attracting more business to the area. Chiapas itself, with lower labor costs and low risk of violence, will also serve as a means of attracting these foreign businesses to take part in this new program. Although the economy will naturally diversify through the incorporation of these foreign businesses, we also plan to encourage more local efforts, such as small-scale food production and local service markets, to both stabilize and expand the Chiapas economy. This will help out the goal of reducing inequality, both economic and social, between the richest and poorest inhabitants of the region. Since the region's cities are wealthier than its rural areas by a large margin, development will be focused from the cities outward and will initially be focused on building out infrastructure the way the poorest areas of Chiapas quickly revive access to roads, water, and electricity that they so badly need. Ideally, this infrastructure development will use local labor, which would help set the region towards economic development. After this stage is completed, the plan's focus will be turned to education, including language classes for indigenous citizens, as the language barrier often prevents them from finding employment. This would assist in transitioning those employed in the initial infrastructure stage to higher skilled and higher paying work, which would both contribute to a more diverse economy as well as incentivize further development in the region. The funding for this branch of the plan would be largely derived from a tax increase around the cities, which would later extend to those who want to increase their income into a taxable range as a result of this plan. Basically, our goal is to bring more investment, unlock more of the money that is going to be invested in Mexico, and help to develop the Chiapas region into a more prosperous and more diverse, more complex economy. So essentially, once our plan is implemented, Chiapas will have a more complex economy. So the government will still be able to invest money in social services, but with the more complex economy added, when government investment happens, no leaks.
For a model of what Chiapas could look like after it diversifies its economy, let's turn our attention to Baja California. Baja California is one of the richest states in Mexico, with a GDP per capita of over $20,000. It has an extreme poverty rate of only 3.4%. That's about 1/10 that in Chiapas, showing that the money in Baja California is distributed far more evenly. If we turn our attention to Tijuana, the largest city in Baja California, we'll see that it's a bustling city that adds over 80,000 new residents per year. It has a vibrant economy because of its comparatively lower labor costs that attracts factories from the United States. There are over 600 factories in Tijuana alone, and Tijuana is known as the capital of medical device manufacturing. If cities in Chiapas can emulate Tijuana by carving out their own spaces in the manufacturing market, that'll help the entire state to develop.